It was a very simple lesson being pushed throughout the 60s by radical groups, and that was provocation works. A small group of people on the margins of society, if they can provoke violence from the authorities, if they can have that caught on camera, then they can inspire more people to get involved.
I was very interested in the American civil rights movement, and I was later involved in setting up a Young Socialist Alliance in Belfast. We were then in touch with a group of the same name in the United States, the Young Socialist Alliance there, which was very involved in the black civil rights struggle, so we got a lot of literature from them. So we were able to follow the debates inside the civil rights movement in America.
I remember holding a Vietnam solidarity flag at a student meeting because you were absolutely insistent, this is not local. This is not just about this. This is about all of these liberation movements.
It was a time of change. People wanted change, and they were not. The apathy was now dissipating. You know, it was evaporating, and people began to see that all these struggles are interrelated in some way.
Ho, 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 ho,
we were not just part of a kind of a local, parochial protest movement. We were part of something which is much bigger.
The time I spent in London in the 1960s was certainly significant for me, and looking back on it, significant to this day, because it helped shape the politics, most of which I hope I have retained over the years, and it certainly shaped my perception of what was going on in Northern Ireland, and it gave me a sense sort of that in Northern Ireland too, we had to try to fit the local issues, the Northern Ireland issues, into an international perspective. Sort of gave me a conviction that this was the way forward, that the sense of futility which attended nationalist politics back home could be overcome, that we could possibly sweep over the local, provincial politics of Northern Ireland by introducing sort of the international dimension to it. I still believe that.
Clearly, in the first instance, for us, one of our heroes was Martin Luther King. And his challenge to those of us who watch television was to take part in a movement and to use the tools of civil disobedience.
His view of white and black rose above that of governors and senators and presidents. He had a world-transforming view.
Folks, move out of 7th Street, please, and keep the streets open.
I'm not into the cult of heroes, but I have to confess to you that the leader of the black civil rights movement at that time would have been a hero of mine. I thought he was a wonderful individual. That speech that he made, "I have a dream," really set me on fire, that the absolute sincerity and the clarity of vision of the man.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
The thing that Martin Luther King had above everyone, he had the capacity to make the hair stand on the back of my head because he was such a wonderful orator.
We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
By 1968, before his assassination, Martin Luther King was in favor of radical restructuring of society and the economy in America. Really, he was going for helping the poor people, black, white in America. It was the poor people's campaign he was behind. That's what the civil rights movement had become. And he was also against the Vietnam War. So this kind of more radical Martin Luther King is much more in fitting with what Michael Farrell and what Amy McCann wanted.
There's a freedom explosion all over over the world, and I think of our movement here in the United States as a part of that worldwide struggle to achieve justice and freedom and human dignity.
I know the term is often used, non-violence, but everywhere where Martin Luther went, violence reacted against his marchers and his speeches. So I'm not comfortable with the term non-violence, and I don't think it certainly didn't apply when we tried those methodologies in Northern Ireland. It was far from non-violent.
Jesus, Gandhi, Dr. King, Northern Ireland, this movement for change was sweeping the world. And those who resisted it, often leaders of the status quo, some governor, some state official, they were always wiped out because they were battling the future. And the past cannot stop the future any more than dark can stop light.
The people in Northern Ireland have all the civil rights they need. They have freedom of speech, freedom of everything. They need no civil rights.
There were really two people behind many of the organisations, the Derry Housing Action, this, that and the other. It was phone the papers and put in a statement and say you're from whatever and create this belief that there was this agitation, but really it was two people very Marxist, socialist-minded, especially Eamon McCann.
I returned quite accidentally to Derry. I was intending to stay for about 10 days, but while I was back in Derry, I met an old friend, Dermy McLenaghan, who said, we're carrying out this action, we're going to block the Lecky Road and the Bogside with a caravan at the weekend. Will you come and help us? So I did become involved in that.
When Eamon came to Derry and joined the Labour Party, he immediately caused division. Not with intent or not with malice, but just because of what he was politically. And that is a compliment to him, by the way.
The only people really stirring things up in Northern Ireland are the Unionist government. You see, if the issues did not exist, it would be impossible to agitate upon them. I make no bones about it. I don't want just to abolish unionism. I want to destroy it.
There was an energy. He's a brilliant orator and had a lot of positive ideas. And like we began opposing evictions and things like that.
We squatted people. People used to say at the time, well, you know, squatting's unfair because it means there's queue jumping. But there couldn't be queue jumping if there was no official queue.
One of the main protests occurred when the mayor wanted to officially open the underdeck of Craigavon Bridge. So the Housing Action Committee decided that they were going to disrupt the ceremony, and they made placards, you know, talking about bad conditions in housing, etc. And they got along each side of the bridge, and as his car, he had to cut a ribbon, of course, and as his car was coming across, we ran out, sat down on the bridge with the placards up. And of course then, I mean, the point is we were dragged off the bridge.
I say to Democrats in Northern Ireland and Britain, are we going to be like the Jews? Are we going to sit down and watch all this happening? Or are we going to stand up and say, look here, Adolf Craig, we're not taking no nonsense?
Having Finbar as a twin, not only as a twin but as a brother, was quite an experience because he was very daring. He got involved in all people's problems. People would come to him asking for help. He would stick his neck out, and if he got involved in anything, he got stuck into it 100%. And he was absolutely fearless.
The people of Londonderry have suffered gerrymandering, a lack of jobs, 5,800 people unemployed, no homes, people living in hovels. No one has bothered to do anything about it. In 12 months, 8 houses were built by Londonderry Corporation. The people are retaliating now.
The authorities could not cope with us, and so they stuck labels on us, and the label they stuck on us was Republicans and Communists.